Hello and welcome to this watercolor live stream on YouTube. And hello to Pamela. Pamela's going to be watching, and she's busy getting organised for the grandchildren. Excellent. And Lindsay's joined us as well. So two website members have joined us so far in the chat. And if you are watching live, put a message in the comments. Let me know you're here. And if you watch the replay, which I know a lot of you do, you can obviously put a comment in as well if you want to. So, what have I got planned for today? Let's have a little look. There we go. So this is a photograph I took not far from where I live, here in central France. A nice summer evening. I think it's actually the morning, actually, looking at the shadows. Probably one of our morning walks. We have a circular route where we go, and we quite often do it in the morning and in the evening. So nice sunlight there. And what I did, I use my app on my phone to come up with these black and white images. There's actually 3 values in those, and the idea is to sort of show you how different the painting can be by where you draw attention by tonal contrasts. So for instance, let me zoom in a little bit easier. Exactly the same photograph, these two here, same photo, that we're obviously portraying a sense of light on this one, because we've got stronger contrast of light and dark. So for me, that probably would make a stronger, more powerful painting. Perhaps more atmospheric effects on this one. And we've got perhaps a bright sky on this one. We can perhaps have an illusion of a cloud coming over. And then we've got another variation here, which we perhaps draw attention to this building by having dark against light on there. And you can do these by hand, which I've done in the past on previous demos. That's one I did on a demo a while ago, and I used these pens. These are Winsor & Newton Pro Art markers, but anything, a black pen, a grey one, and then a lighter grey one. And you can even do it with browns or whatever, but just do it in one colour. You can even experiment with these pictures. And the idea of a thumbnail is to just perhaps try things. For instance, if I wanted to, maybe on this one, I could put a tree. Where should we do? This one down here. If I wanted to make more of this building here, I could put a tree there. Again, it's adding contrast. So you can experiment on this sort of stuff, and it's better to do this than experiment on your painting, for instance. If we wanted to make that building a little bit more interesting, we could perhaps put that it's got an extension there, another little roof in there, maybe add a window, add a figure. Then I'll add a figure, and obviously the shadows, get that in there. So let's have a go at painting one of these. I quite like that one, so perhaps I'll have a go at doing that one, and then maybe we'll do another little quick study of that one. Maybe we'll see how it goes. Lindsay's got a set of those pens. Excellent. Be a good investment for you, I think. So that's the reference picture, and all these reference pictures are available on the website. And I think I did actually share this one on Inspirational Photos for Artists group. So let's sort this camera out so we can actually see what paints I'm using. And you can get hold of these. These are viewfinders, but I wanted to show you this. I never use it because there's just too many values on it. Maybe for portraiture in oils or things like that, it might be quite good when there's lots and lots of subtle variations. But we've got 10 values here. I try to get it down to about 5. That's good. And these are 3. And with 3 values, even 4 sometimes, it'll tell the story. So the simpler you can make things, the better it'll be for you. So let's put my reference picture up where I can see it. I'm just going to paint these nice and simple, nothing fancy. And I've also figured out how to put my subscriber count down on the bottom right there, that the channel is growing. So I know a lot of people who watch my videos and this replay haven't subscribed as yet, so you can help me out and hit that subscribe button. There we go. So let's get painting. Do a little bit of a drawing. We don't need a lot. But what have we got there? We've got a building. And you could be quite loose with this. You know, I'm just treating this as a bit of a sketch. Nothing too serious. We've got a chimney there. Building just disappears off into the distance. We've got a road that snakes down here. And we're going to have these nice strong shadows going across here. And the building needs to be fairly accurate to a certain degree, but all these trees and everything else, you know, you can just be quite loose and free with that because they could be anything. And we can just about see a building here in the photo, but that's why I quite like these little note-hand studies or little thumbnails, because you eliminate a lot of that detail, and one would argue that building isn't totally necessary. So let's have a look. We've got shadow going that way. And a vertical there, that's quite nice. So there we go. Let's make a H composition. So we've got two verticals, and we can create the illusion of depth by having a post there that's got a wire there. So let's throw some paint on it. Before I start painting, I shall just top up my paint well. But they're all contaminated, these colours, which again is why I can't give you exact colour mixes, because you know this is Handsy yellow with a load of muck in it. But that's how much paint I put out, because I want to have plenty of paint to paint with. That if you put out a little pea-sized bit of paint, you're going to be struggling. And they're all pretty full, but I'll just top those two up. And it's a hot day today, so let's just help the paints out by giving them a little spray of water. So I'll just wipe that out. I was signing a few paintings today. But, Kate, my wife, who sorts the website out, has requested some artwork to add on there to the gallery for sale. Keep that updated. So I'll perhaps show you a few paintings I'm going to pass on to the admin department later on in this live stream. So I'll stick to a simple palette of colours, and I recommend if you're a beginner you do the same. So perhaps cobalt blue, some warm yellows. I did a seascape yesterday for the memberships, which was very similar, using those colours. So let's just go for a fairly light sky. And something I've realised over the last probably few months, how important this white sparkle is. It really does put life into your paintings. And then some of this yellow ochre down here. And I'll just paint that up into that sky a little bit. This is 7 inches or 7.5 inches by 11 inches. So I take a full sheet, fold it in half, and then fold it in half again. So that's the maximum amount of paper you can get out of your sheet of watercolour paper. And it's Saunders and Waterford, £140 knot. Let's put some orange on those. You can see quite a few sort of terracotta rooftops around here. Again, some sparkle on that road. to a bit of blue, make a grey. So this is all going to be in shadow over here. Let's put some red in there for later, because that'll just come through in that shadow maybe. And a load of pyrrole orange over this side. So, bit of warmth off in the sky there. That's for later. And then we'll dry that off. While I'm drying that off, let's just switch this other camera here. I've got a typo, have I? Subscriber. So I've always got typos in my my work. Don't worry. What was I doing? Hairdryer. Can you dry that off? So we're back onto dry paper, and if we have a look here, ignore the colours, we're just thinking tonal values, that we've gone probably around value 2, possibly value 1 in some of these areas, and we've also got 0, which is the white of the paper. So now we're going to go slightly darker, so we'll probably be putting in values 3 and then working our way up to the really dark tones. So welcome to those looking at the analytics here. A few of you have joined us live, so don't forget to hit that like and subscribe if you're new to the channel, and drop me a comment. And welcome to this live stream. So, greys. Greys are great for watercolour, and to get a grey, you just mix all your colours together. So there we go. Nice warm brown. I can steer it towards blue, make it a bluey grey by adding more blue. It's good to have a good play of warm and cool colours. So if we put that in the shadow here, and notice we've got the bead going here, and that's really important. So what we could do is maybe pretend there's some light coming across there. Let's just try it. You can always get rid of it if it doesn't work. See what that does. So what's the bead for? The bead is to keep this area alive, because I want to connect this to the reflection, to the shadows in the foreground here. And there's going to be trees and so on here. And there's that shadow on the roof there. So already it starts to look like a building, and I've not done any detail. So let's put some trees off in the distance here. These are perhaps getting some sunlight. Just control the amount of paint. Use the side of the brush, a variation of different sorts of trees. Bit of red. We're going for a warm scene. And let's go a bit more red for the rooftop on here. And then I'll use some of that shadow colour and connect these trees to that building. And because these trees are a long way away, we don't need any detail as such. Just keep it flat shape, and I can see the gate off in the distance. There's a field, but just all abstract shapes. That's all I need. And then, but what I'm doing is I'm creating light in the painting by leaving these areas of lighter values here. So let's bring that down, and so there's light I'm leaving behind here. Again, just abstract shapes. Switch to a bit of purple to go across that road. And not necessarily following the reference picture as such. Just so let's use a bigger brush. Got the Skoda Ultimo here. That's a good one for doing trees and things like that. We'll put a few darks in there while that's still damp. More paint on the brush. Remember, if you put a dry brush, it'll soak up the water first, so you need to get plenty of paint on there. So let's go nice and strong and dark in here. Let's put that post in there. And plenty of sparkle through there. So when I say sparkle, what I mean is the light and dark there, good combination of the both. And let's pull that across there. Do all the wet into wet stuff while you can. And simplify where you can. Go back to a smaller brush. Perhaps we'll have a taller tree there, just invent one. I've got this sign writing brush. Again, I've soaked up all the water there, which we can perhaps throw in that pole there while I've got that brush on the go. Some branches and stuff. And I quite often find when I do this sort of what I consider to be just messing about, they end up being quite spontaneous and interesting. The challenge is to know when to stop. Let's just throw some water on there. I quite like doing that to see what it does. More interesting effects. Just channel that off the side there. So I can work over this side. So if you want to put a dark area in an area that's damp, like here. So for instance, if I wanted to put a little dark under the eaves, you've got to use thick paint, hardly any water on there at all. And same if I want to put a little window on that building, it perhaps would be a little dark under there. It actually needs to be a little bit thicker still. So really just using paint straight from the tube there. Be careful that you don't put too much detail in, which I'm perhaps getting borderline making a bit of a meal of that. With watercolor, once you've done it, you've done it. sure what's actually there. It looks like a little lean-to. Perhaps is catching some light. I'm just using a dry brush here just to lift a little bit of paint off, just to make a little bit less of it. Just to get that dark in there. But it happens with watercolor, you find yourself sometimes just overworking an area. Obviously there'd probably be a shadow here from that building, so just make a note of that. Just another couple of little windows. I've got this building on an angle and this one's kind of not on an angle, so I might have to put a bush here or something to hide some of that. Let's use some Hansa yellow mixed in with whatever was on the brush and there. So let's put a bush here and hide my perspective issues there. There we go. And we've got a lot of water collecting here, so let's just sort that out. So we can go quite dark in here. There's perhaps light coming through there a little bit, and then it goes really dark down here. And cooler. So let's add some blue. Going quite dark in here. And we're going to, by going dark, we increase the contrast. Through there. Just use a bigger brush. And I'm trying to create color harmony, so sticking to a warm palette of colors. A few branches. We can really just suggest an illusion of detail. And if you pull a dark area across the light area, it'll have more effect. Again, going back to that contrast. And let's have some blue. Let's clean that brush off. So we've got a lamppost there. What if I throw some blue into there? Maybe not as much as that. So just be careful not to overwork things when you're looking for things to do. You could be done. Let's take some pyrrole orange, nice and thick. Real sunlight there, just going through those trees, hiding my perspective. What I got wrong. Splash a bit of water on there and see what that does. Give it a little spray for luck. So there's always a lesson to learn from when you do your paintings, that just consider the perspective. That line should have gone off at an angle more there, but I just learn from that when you do the next painting. But it's still, there's some nice elements in the painting, and I think if you get the washes and get it nicely painted, you can get away with some things that aren't quite perfect. Birds in the sky. So let's dry that off. Maybe we'll have a couple of figures in there. So let's have a go with some figures. So we'll zoom in. Move my bit of paper over. So in an ideal world, there would have been a couple of little highlights left here with white paper or the orange wash, but there isn't any. So I will just resort to using a bit of white gouache, straight from the tube. Just dip my brush in there. Maybe just pick up a little bit of pyrrole orange, just to take away the white a little bit. So we'll have a couple of figures walking around there, and I've got the height roughly. The doorway would be about there on the house, so I'm using that as a guesstimate. And quite possibly there would be no highlight or rim lighting on these figures because they're in shade here, but again, artistic license. I'm just getting that one in, ready for the comment. Bit of there we go, and we'll give them some clothes. Give him a blue jacket, t-shirt. It's quite warm. And I've got some nice hands of yellow out. As it were, against a fairly dark background, we can give this figure perhaps some white shorts. Both got shorts on. For an evening stroll in central France. And they're going to need shadows to anchor them to the ground. Which I think we've decided the sun is coming in this way. That'll do the trick. I think I will just make that a little bit darker. And the reason for that is it just increases the tonal contrast. But things like the window, that's gone quite well because it's got a soft edge all the way around, so it doesn't draw attention to it. If I went over that, made it darker like the chimney there, it wouldn't look like it's lost in the shadow there. So, and maybe I could make slightly less of that roof there if I just put a little bit of a stain over it. It's an old corrugated iron maybe. But again, I don't want to make more of it too much really. This is the fiddling stage in watercolor where you destroy your painting. So we've almost got to physically take the brush out of your hand. So let's zoom out. We'll take the tape off. But with all of this stuff, it's quite tricky. It plays tricks on your mind that you want to try and paint all these leaves. There's 35,000 there I've just counted, and same over this side. So I find the best way is just to throw the paint on and try and let it paint itself. Let's get rid of the reference picture. Don't need that anymore. Let's bring me up. There we go, back here. So take the tape off. So if you enjoy the live streams and you want to see more, you can join me on memberships. I've got membership on my website, tier 2. And you get all the replays as well. We've got a workshop at the end of the month. So let's have a quick look at your comments, and then we'll perhaps I'll show you. I've got a big stack of paintings here that I've just signed. Let's remove the palette out of the way. Get paint over it. So thank you, Juan, for your comment. So yeah, I can see there's a typo there, subscriber. That's actually I stole that from the internet. I took a screenshot, but I should have paid closer attention that someone has got that wrong. So that's my fault for nicking the subscriber count picture. I'll get rid of it. So I'll make my own one. But there's the subscriber count. We have had some subscribers, so that's great since I started this live stream. Let's make that a little bit bigger. So my aim obviously is to hit that 100,000 mark. So there's a long way to go, but just chip away at it bit by bit. But yeah, I've got a big stack of watercolors here, which if you're interested, I'll just talk you through some of those. Perhaps not all of them today, but we're trying to stick to about half an hour on these YouTube live streams. So that's one we've just painted. That was, let me sort my camera out. There we go. Let's zoom in so we can see what's going on. So this was last week's live stream. Sort out all my widgets. So yeah, this was last week's live stream. I painted this in oils. I've got an oil channel as well that if you paint both, take a look at that as well. There's a link in the description. So this worked okay actually. That I think I gave myself a bit of a hard time during the at the end of this session, saying it hadn't necessarily worked as well as I'd hoped or whatever. But in actual fact, looking at it afterwards, it was quite nice. So that's fine. That some members had a go at this and shared it on our members forum on the website. And that was really good as well. But yeah, I quite like this sort of softness in here. We've got all soft edges off in the background, and then these hard edges that really makes that tree look closer to us. This was painted actually on location a little while ago on plein air. That I think I did that one first, but I wasn't recording, and then I did another one to do a demo. The paintings you do outside, I think, hold a little bit more of a memory. That as soon as I look at these paintings, I don't necessarily think about actually doing the painting. I think about we were in the camper van where we stopped, what we did that day. We had a cycle ride and so on. But it's really good to go outdoors and paint. If you want to remember things, because you definitely see more when you paint. That was last week's live stream. This is one of Mark's photos from his travels. So I'm sure Mark will have a go at painting these scenes as well. But again, H composition, lead in, and the focus, I suppose, is all here. And in the photo, it was a really complicated scene off in the distance, but really simplified it. So again, all these demos are on tier 2, available on the website membership. So I've got to get my adverts in to get you on the website. I showed you that one possibly last week. That's one of my favorite paintings I've done for a little while. It's nice sense of light in there, and I really liked how the buildings went there, and so that's a bit of a breakthrough painting for me, I think. I've not been to Italy, but I think it's a great place probably for artists to go. And again, I used all this method in the demo we've just done, and you'll find that, all the methods I teach in my demos, you can use them in all your paintings. It's all the same. So I will be repeating tonal value, colors, and composition, and so on. But you need to hear it again and again for it to sink in. I certainly did. So again, although I didn't do that on location, that was on the Loire in France. Our recent trip away, we went and had a look at some chateaus, and I remember we sat on the bench and I took a photograph of that, and I kind of saw the painting straight away. So I had to go at that one when we got back. Shared that on the membership yesterday. That's a Cuppa in the UK, in Wales. And again, so important, this white paper coming through adds sparkle. And another one from France. So I've got a big stack here, but I'll perhaps save those for another live stream. We'll go live again, and that's just tip of the iceberg, to be fair. There's hundreds of them. That I am a prolific painter, and all of these I share obviously on memberships. I've just noticed that covering my face, probably better to be up there. I've got myself covering me. So there you go. Hopefully you enjoyed that demonstration. That's what we painted if you just joined us, and it's available straight away, the replay, and all the reference pictures I'll share on memberships. So if you want to join my memberships, you can go to www.robertmeeworkshops.com and join me on tier 2, and I'll give you access to everything. So thanks for joining me live, and a big thank you and hello to members I can see on there and regular viewers, and we'll see you soon. So bye for now.